Grace, sweetie, I need you to help me understand. You said there was a bad man who took you. He put you in a cage, but then he offered you cake. Then a cop showed up, pushed him down, took you out of the cage, and then brought you home. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. That's him.
I'm sorry, him?
That's the cop who brought me home and saved me.
You mean Jim?
I mean, Grace recognized that cop on the wall.
The cop hanging on that wall in there, he died a year ago.
Come on, reach for it. Fuck.
The town of Augusta remains under the weight of a pervasive fear following the unexplained disappearance of multiple young girls over several months. Families keep their doors locked while the local police force searches for a single actionable lead. On a quiet afternoon, a man enters a local cafe and approaches the counter with an unremarkable demeanor, placing an order for a winter mint cheesecake. The cafe staff processes the transaction without suspicion and boxes up the dessert. The man takes the container and exits the establishment, walking toward a beat-up white van parked in the lot. Inside the vehicle, the floorboards are covered in filth and discarded debris, contrasting with the man's calm outward appearance. He settles into the driver's seat and turns the ignition, steering the van away from the town center and onto gravel roads that lead toward the isolated outskirts where civilization thins into dense woods. This man is the predator responsible for the town's recent tragedies, and the cake in the passenger seat is intended for his latest captive, a girl named Grace. Grace has been missing for over 15 days. The man pulls the van to a stop at a remote, dilapidated farm and enters the hiding spot to present the cheesecake. Grace shows no interest in the food, her eyes red from crying as she repeatedly asks to see her father. The kidnapper, Will Rave, crouches down to her level and attempts to dismantle her remaining hope by telling her that her father, Edward, has stopped looking for her. Rave mentions that he drove 20 miles specifically to get her the dessert and demands that she show gratitude by eating it. The air in the room shifts as a police officer appears behind Will Rave and launches a swift, silent attack. Before Grace can process the violence, the officer reaches out and shields her eyes with his hand, eliminating the kidnapper without a word of warning. The officer does not call for backup or wait for a medical team. Instead, he leads Grace out to the kidnapper's van and helps her into the seat, driving her through the winding back roads directly toward her neighborhood. When the van reaches her house, the officer brings the vehicle to a halt but remains inside. He watches from the driver's side window and offers a small, silent wave as Grace steps out onto the pavement. Grace walks to her front door and presses the doorbell. Inside, Edward Brown hears the chime and opens the door, nearly collapsing at the sight of his daughter.
Where have you been?
Inside the cage.
Grace asks for food as her body trembles from the ordeal. Edward brings her inside and begins preparing a meal, his hands shaking as he works. Once the initial shock of her return subsides, Edward contacts Detective Maddie Wells. Maddie delivers a series of strict instructions to Edward over the line, telling him not to let Grace change her clothes or wash her skin. She orders him to bring the girl to the hospital immediately for a forensic and medical examination. At the hospital, the medical staff performs a comprehensive checkup while police officers bag Grace's clothing as evidence. The results of the examination reveal that while Grace is malnourished and suffering from psychological trauma, she bears no signs of physical or sexual assault. The following morning, Maddie and her team sit down with Grace to record her formal statement. When asked how she escaped, Grace explains that a police officer found her and brought her home. The detectives exchange looks of confusion, as no rescue operation had been authorized by their department.
Wait, there was a cop there?
The cop that took me out of the cage and brought me home.
How did you know it was a cop? Like this?
Maddie asks if the officer used a standard patrol car with flashing lights, but Grace shakes her head and clarifies that the man drove her in the kidnapper's van, noting that it is still sitting in their driveway. This information sends the police team racing to the Brown residence.
You look scared.
I look scared because I am scared. Bear, think about it. History of any criminal abduction that a kid is abducted, And then she just shows up back at home. Random cop rescued her. We don't have fairies in our line of work.
Upon arrival, they find the white van exactly where Grace described. Officers draw their service weapons and approach the vehicle with caution, but a search of the interior reveals it is empty. A check of the license plates directs the investigators to a property on the edge of town. At the site, the police discover the corpse of Will Rave lying on the ground where the rescuer left him. Maddie calls Edward with the update, identifying the dead man as a local resident who had lost his second wife to childbirth years prior. Maddie orders a search of the grounds for potential burial sites.
Have you guys found a grave anywhere on the property?
We don't see any grave.
He buried his wife on the property. And Jeff, we need to find this grave. It could lead us to the remains of the other missing kids.
The search team locates the grave of Rave's deceased wife, but the investigation takes a turn when they begin digging in a circular pattern around her headstone. They uncover the remains of 4 small bodies, the other missing children who never made it back to Augusta.
The ground just exploded. No more fairies.
The predator is dead, but the identity of the savior remains unknown.
On the remains of 4 children buried near. We also believe that the same individual is responsible for the abduction of Grace Brown. Fortunately, she was able to escape the farm and make it home safely. Thank you. Let me know further questions.
How's she make it home? Are there any witnesses?
Maddie visits the cafe where the cheesecake was purchased and reviews the security footage. Seeing nothing conclusive, she insists on questioning Grace again. Despite Edward's desire to shield his daughter, Grace is presented with photographs featuring every officer in the local jurisdiction, but she identifies none of them. Maddie suggests a different approach and takes Grace to the cafe to see if she recognizes any regular customers or staff members. At the cafe, Grace walks through the tables and scans the faces of the patrons. She identifies no one until she stops in front of a framed memorial photograph on the wall. She points to the man in the uniform and identifies him as her rescuer.
That's the cop who brought me home and saved me.
You mean Jim?
I'm not too sure of his name. All I know is he took me out of the cage and brought me home.
Maddie, is everything okay?
Grace was just saying she saw someone that looked like Jim.
Maddie recognizes the man as Officer Jim Wheeler. The cafe owner, Mason, approaches the group as they move outside to discuss the situation. Edward demands to know the identity of the man in the photo, and Maddie reveals that Officer Jim was killed in that very cafe exactly 12 months ago.
She identified the cop.
The cop hanging on that wall in there is our colleague, Jim. He died a year ago. In this cafe.
I'm sorry.
Maddie attempts to rationalize the event, suggesting Grace is misremembering a man who bore a resemblance to the deceased officer. However, at precisely 2:35 the following morning, the internal systems at the police station begin to malfunction as the lights throughout the building shift to a deep red. Maddie's computer monitor flickers to life and displays security footage of the kidnapper's van. She watches as the rear doors of the vehicle swing shut on their own with no person visible in the frame. She follows the pulsing red lights to the lower floor where every monitor is broadcasting the same footage on a continuous loop. Simultaneously, at the Brown house, Grace wakes up to find Jim Wheeler standing in the center of her bedroom. Back at the station, Maddie turns around to find the ghost of Jim standing directly in front of her desk. Maddie flees the building, enters her car, and drives away. Grace runs into Edward's room, sobbing and begging to sleep in his bed because the policeman is in her room. Edward comforts her and decides to investigate the bedroom himself. The room is physically empty, but as he stands in the center of the space, he feels a heavy, cold presence directly behind him.
Hey, detective, how you doing?
I got sleepy, so I pulled over.
All right, take care.
Maddie wakes up in her car the next morning and sends a text to Edward, requesting an immediate meeting. When they meet, she is visibly trembling and shows him the footage of the van doors moving on their own. Edward confirms that the occurrences are not isolated to the station, explaining that Grace refused to sleep in her room because of Jim's presence. He admits that while he did not see the figure clearly, the sensation of being watched was undeniable.
I felt a presence. I saw something.
You're in the Bahamas.
While they discuss the supernatural, another crisis begins. A teenage girl named Nia waits outside her school for her mother, Sophia. Sophia calls to explain she is trapped in traffic and asks Nia to walk home. Nia agrees and begins her journey, unaware that a black vehicle is trailing her from a distance. Within minutes, Nia is snatched off the street. When Nia fails to arrive home, Sophia rushes to the police station to report her daughter missing. Maddie is initially dismissive, arguing that Nia is a teenager and has only been missing for a few hours. Sophia rejects this, stating that Nia was calm during their call and pointing out that Nia's cell phone was turned off shortly after they spoke. Maddie tries to ease Sophia's fears by stating the previous kidnapper is dead, but by the next morning, there is still no sign of Nia.
No cameras, no homes here, nothing.
How soon can you get back here?
Hello?
We'd like to speak to you again.
I'm ready now. I can come now.
Surveillance footage reveals a black van in the vicinity of the school at the time of the disappearance. Maddie questions Sophia about Nia's father, Lamar Thompson, and learns he died of cancer 3 years prior. Maddie focuses on why the phone was turned off so quickly, implying Nia might be complicit. Sophia becomes enraged and accuses Maddie of ignoring the danger.
Just listen to me. I know in my heart what happened to my daughter. She's trying to call.
I need to use the restroom.
You need to find her.
In a hidden location, Nia is held captive by a man in a black van who tells her that if she obeys, she will be released unharmed.
If you promise to behave, I can make sure you stay comfortable. Sure. Please don't hurt me.
At the Brown house, Edward's wife, Kelly, returns after a long absence. Edward receives a call from Maddie about Nia's case but tells her the timing is poor due to Kelly's return, and he privately warns Grace not to tell her mother about Jim. Sophia makes an emotional plea on the news, causing the media to question the police chief about the kidnapper's identity. As investigators dig into Nia's background at her school, they discover her last name was recently changed from Davis to Thompson.
Did Nia Thompson change her name?
What do you mean, change your name?
School records, her name is Nia Davis.
Husband, Lamar Thompson, is not Nia's father.
That's not what she said in her statement.
Why would she lie about that?
Maddie confronts Sophia about the lie. Sophia admits that Nia's biological father is Tyrell Davis, the man who murdered Officer Jim Wheeler a year ago. Sophia hid this because she feared the police would not work as hard to find the daughter of a cop killer.
You can't tell the press about this.
You have made a serious mistake.
At the Brown house, Kelly confesses to Edward that she had run off to party, but after she gave a friend a pill, the friend died. In her moment of suicidal guilt, Jim appeared to her and gave her plane tickets, commanding her to go back to her family.
He gave me plane tickets. It was like he was an angel who showed up just to save me.
Edward, I'm sorry.
The police chief gives Maddie 7 days to find Nia or face a transfer. Maddie returns to the cafe and asks Mason for the full story of Jim's death. Mason describes how Tyrell robbed the cafe, took his wedding ring, and shot Jim in the face at 2:35 a.m. Mason admits he has seen Jim since then. Jim appeared at 2:35 a.m., expressing guilt that his disfigured face prevented his wife from saying goodbye. Mason also reveals that Jim saved the cafe from bankruptcy after Mason agreed to hang his photo and accept his hand.
I did what he asked. I put up his picture right there. We're flourishing. Yes, ma'am.
Maddie tells Edward what she learned, and Edward admits he also met Jim. Jim offered to grant Edward's wish, to have Kelly return, in exchange for a price Edward refuses to name. Desperate to find Nia, Maddie asks to meet Jim face to face. Edward tells her to come to his house at 2:30 a.m.
I want to meet Jim.
Grace's room, 2:30 in the morning.
Before the meeting, Maddie consults a priest who warns her that ghosts are in defiance of God's will. Ignoring the advice, she goes to Edward's house and meets with the ghost of Jim alone upstairs.
Hi, Maddie.
The next day, Maddie's behavior changes. She gets a childhood photo of Nia from Sophia and uses surveillance footage to track a black van that passes a convenience store every day at 10 a.m. She visits Tyrell Davis in prison, shows him the photo of Nia, and leaves.
Hello? Yes, this is Nia Thompson. Who is this?
Parker, Maddie's partner, follows the van's route to an abandoned motel where he finds a burner phone. The police raid the motel and find Nia safe. Simultaneously, Tyrell Davis commits suicide in his cell using a hidden knife. Parker becomes suspicious and searches Maddie's car, finding the childhood photo of Nia. On the back, in Maddie's handwriting, is a message.
Yeah, Parker?
I have something important to talk to you about.
Okay, I'm coming.
He confronts her at the cafe. Maddie confesses that Jim gave her Nia's location in exchange for her accepting him as her ghost. The truth is revealed. Jim wanted Tyrell dead but needed the living to execute the plan. At Jim's command, Edward kidnapped Nia to provide leverage. Maddie then delivered the message to Tyrell: kill yourself, or your daughter dies. The call to Nia's phone was Tyrell saying goodbye before he took his own life.
Just let her go. I agree to do anything you want me to do, and it'll be done.
Parker threatens to report her, but Maddie reveals that Jim has already cured Parker's stage 3 cancer. Parker gets retested and is clean. Finally, Parker goes to Edward's house and meets Jim, where he is given the same choice to accept the ghost's hand. They have all received their miracles, but they are now bound to a vengeful spirit.
Say it. My soul belongs to you. It's done now.